possibility of not getting it done was non-existent in my field of consciousness. We have the ability to decide with absolute clarity and certainty in advance that we're going to create something even long before we have any clue how.
I'm gonna give you my love. I'm gonna give you my love. Oh, want a whole lot of love. 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 You've been learning, baby.
Hey, welcome guys, welcome. I'm so excited. I'm interviewing one of my dearest friend. I love this guy so much. I'm reading his daily dose on a daily basis. And his name is Dorris, a mental toughness coach. So Chris, welcome. I'm excited about what we're gonna uncover, creating miracles, most probably.
Yes, man. Thank you, Francis, for having me, my brother.
Yeah, so before we start, I remember even myself having the idea of doing mental toughness. And there's the toughness part that I wasn't sure if I wanted to use it, but I'd like to hear your definition of mental toughness.
Yeah. You know, I use the term, I like the term, it's fun. I'm a sports nut. So mental toughness is actually, in fact, the absence of mental toughness actually played a huge part in my life. So it has a lot to do with, you know, the trajectory that I've chosen to take vocationally speaking. But the terminology I use because it's fun and it's good for branding. It doesn't mean what most people think. It doesn't mean to me what most people might assume it means. Like the connotation that comes with mental toughness might be like kind of grunt football player, kind of tough, you know, be like, it's like just a mental version of toughness, being a tough guy. That's a piece of it. But that's just a piece, because there's a time for that, but then there's a time not for that. Like if you're talking about peak performance, being a grunt is like more often not the peak performance state to be in, like the, you know, like the adrenaline rush kind of thing. No, it's much more graceful than that. So mental toughness is very simply, I define it as using your mind in only ways that serve you. Mental toughness is the product of doing the training, the psychological training, which is hardcore, right? Yeah. And mostly unfamiliar to people because it hasn't been taught in schools, you know, so it's just not available to most people, or hasn't historically been. Doing the work to reprogram the way that you use your mind so that creating excellence is more effortless for you. So working your ass off at making shit easy.
Yeah, and I like the word effortless. To me, this is, and I know you choose your word wisely. So everything that you just said, there's a reason for it. So how do you, because you said working at it pretty hard to make it effortless. So can you expand a little bit on that?
Totally, yeah, that's the hard work. So the hard work, and it's like hard is just an interpretation. So I'm going to use that in air quotes, is doing the work. It's not hard unless you think of it that way. So doing the work, the inner work, right? Fortifying your ability to utilize your mind masterfully so that the creation of your desires and excellence becomes easier for you. Effortlessness is a word that is almost always used in description of peak performances from athletes or musicians or anybody in any performance, really. You know, just think about your own, anybody who's watching or listening to this, think about any peak performance from your own life. And I mean like peak, like off the charts, on fire, like seriously, unusually badass performance. The kind of stuff you're like, God, can it always be like this, please? And then when you think of it, think of like, how did you feel? Like, what were the states? What were the psychological states that you were occupying? I use that word on purpose. But what were the states that you were occupying, whether you knew you were doing it on purpose or not, or whether you're even doing it on purpose or not? They're always high grade. And one of the descriptions, like they're always super high grade. No human in history has ever described a peak performance as sucky, shitty, frustrating, anxiety riddled. You know, just like no one has ever let go of a pen and it's went up. It's just not the way this shit works, right? So it's like peak performances are always described as with words like effortless or
In flow.
lighthearted. Yeah, flow, right? Like where it was kind of happening, and excellence was like the norm, and there was no anxiety. Like I wasn't premeditating screwing up. I want like the possibility, even the notion of failure was like non-existent on my radar. I was too busy being amazing to have any time for that nonsense.
So would you say that there's a huge portion of it that is in the now? Because, you know, when you normally think about worry or anxiety or maybe resentment, it's either in the past or in the future. So would you say that the peak performance and the mental toughness is when you have that ability to really grasp everything that's in the now, use what is to create mastery?
Yeah, it's fun to like interview people like immediately after they just kicked ass. It's so fun to do that, you know, and then go, what was it like? Or I like to go, what were you thinking? And a lot of times they'll go, I don't know. I don't know if I even was. Like that's how present we are when we're at our best. Mm-hmm. That we're so immersed in the activity, and we're feeling intrinsic reward, and we're feeling competence, you know, extreme competence. Like you could even say it's beyond competent, and it's like knowing, Knowing. Yeah, and that's all. That's the way we are when we are occupying pure present moment awareness.
You just said earlier that there's time in your life that you didn't use mental toughness. So I'm curious, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your own story and what was the cost of not being mentally tough?
So I've always been physically talented. According to my coaches, that I like have exceptional physical talent. One of my coaches, my high school basketball coach, who I thought was awesome, actually said something remarkable to the media about me one day, which was that Chris is his worst own enemy, which was accurate. I think it was kind of a dick move to put that in the paper. Come on, coach, you're killing me over here.
Oh, but the guy that's not using his own potential. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it was right after a game where I made 9 out of 9 free throws at the end of the game to beat a team that was better than us. I'm like, come on, I've got a little love over here. But that was an exception, that game, for me, because the mistake that I would make is the same mistake that I have witnessed everyone in my entire career making. Like the number one mistake that throughout the entirety of my vocation, serving people, whether it was as a social worker, a therapist, sports psychologist, or executive coach or life coach, it's waiting. Mm-hmm. So like I would wait for good stuff to happen. I would wait for some good outcomes. That's what we were talking about. That's exactly the point of the confidence blog that I posted this week. Waiting for good stuff to happen, waiting for some good results before you feel amazing, before you feel badass, before you feel confident, before you feel competent, before you feel expert, before you feel enthusiasm, like waiting. So my mantra for that is create the state, don't wait. And then the question is, well, what state? I'm like, well, I don't give a shit. Whatever state's going to have you be badass, because it's different for different people, like Tiger Woods. And, Tiger's probably a lot more fiery than somebody like Phil Mickelson said, golf talk. Mm-hmm. So it's like they have totally different game faces, right? So they have different moods. And your game face is the mood you're in when you're at your best. And that varies, like a thumbprint. We've all got them, but no two are identical, right? So it's like, create the state, don't wait. What state? Whatever state you're in when you're at your best, just get into that. Like we have the ability. And the point I'm about to make right here is one of the biggest points I could ever make in this context or conversation. And this is what we weren't taught, man. This is what we were not taught early on, is that you have access right now to every single available human emotional state right now. And that's always true. All you got to do is think your way into it.
Into it.
Think your way into the state. I mean, we're always doing that. Every emotional state we ever experience is a product of what we're thinking in the moment. So that's all we ever do. We never experience a state. I'm not going to finish that sentence because I don't think I agree with what I was about to say. I'll finish it and then I'll make fun of it. This is what I was going to say, but I don't agree with it. Every single state that we ever experience is the product of our thinking in that moment. Now, the reason I don't agree with it is because there's one exception. And it's like, what's the state in the absence of thought, right? Which is either like through meditation or when you're in the zone, right? And you're in automatic mode, automaticity, right? And there's no thinking. And what's the state? And I'm convinced everybody that I asked so far said the same thing: peace. Some variation of that: serenity, lightness, okayness. Right. So I think that's just like that emotional experience exists always. That's all there is. We can participate with it or screw it up with crappy thinking. But every other emotion that we experience, we create with our thinking. So
I'm gonna challenge one thing, and I know you're a master of language, and I'm curious to see what you're gonna say about that, because I know that you're saying to achieve mastery and be a badass is to remove the conditioning. So going back to what you just said, saying that you go into it, would that be to go into it or removing the noise that's there because it's already there? It's already accessible. It doesn't matter. I'm just curious about how your view on this.
Both. I'm going to go with both instead of either or. I'm going to go with the both and response to that one, brother. Which is we all have the ability, like I said, to create any state, to choose voluntarily in a moment's time to think, and we'll do an exercise on that in a second.
Yeah.
To think our way into any state. So I can actively go do that. Now, it's also true that I can get back to peace by removing the shitty thinking. So either way, it all requires me to have awareness of a couple things. One, that I even have the ability, and two, being able to do what I call a self-inquire. I'm not the only one who calls it that. That's what it's called. I coined that term. So if you're going to use it, you need to give me permission.
We're so lucky.
Yeah. So, self-inquiry. I like to say that the most mentally tough people in the world choose to live in a perpetual state of self-inquiry, meaning they're always inquiring. They're always asking themselves questions like, and this language is important. What state am I thinking my way into in this moment, and is it serving me? So, is the state that I'm creating with my thoughts right now useful? Is it even pleasant? Do I want it? Do I agree with it? Is it helping me accomplish anything or is it, if I'm just sitting around, is it even just nice? Okay, so do you want to do
yeah, absolutely. I love it. I think I was thinking about an exercise, and now it's going to be right on. So I love it. Right. Let's do it.
This is a game changer for some folks. So let yourself do this, everybody that's listening to this, right? So think of an event that happened in your life that you would interpret as tragic. And you know, I'm not going to ask you to tell me what it is. You can let yourself really go, like fill your mind. I'm going to use weird language. Voluntarily choose to fill your mind with that particular choice of thought content. So let yourself fully experience the memory of that event that you interpret as tragic. And as you're doing that, notice the emotional state or states that immediately accompany that particular choice of thought content. Hold it.
Yep.
Okay, now we're going to change channels. So now switch it up and choose to fill your mind now with memory of an event that was hysterical, just something damn hilarious. And really fully let yourself experience that in your mind. And as you're doing it, as you're choosing to fill your mind with that particular thought content, notice the emotional state or states that immediately arise on the heels of that choice of thought content. And label them.
Laughter.
All right, now, well, don't tell me yet. Tell me what the first ones were. Describe the first set of emotions from the first choice of thought content. You see how I'm using that weird language? Yeah. Like I'm saying, I said memory like once, but I'd rather say from that choice of thought content, because that's what it is, right?
that.
Right? Like,
Choices, yeah.
what are you choosing to put in your head? What are
Mm.
you choosing to fill your head with right now? So I was asking you to fill it up with a memory of something that you think is tragic. So what were the emotions? If you were you able to do it?
Yeah. It's
All right.
you know, you're more of a panicky. Feel like you look at the future. You don't know where it's gonna go. There's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah, you just you're overwhelmed.
Okay.
It feels
Good.
not clear. Yeah.
Yep. And then what about the second one? The memory of something hysterical.
I guess it's light. I was starting to smile right away because you just said laughing, and I just remember a moment, and I was almost laughing because you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Just,
did you have so you had a physiological excuse me response to the second memory? Did you also have a physiological response to the first memory? The first one.
A little bit less, but yes, I did.
Yeah.
I guess maybe
Which is
there's a little
interesting
bit
that you
of
have any emotional response at all is fascinating, right? Because you're just sitting in your house in a chair, looking at a computer screen with a dude. That's not a whole lot of stimulus. We're just sitting around, two friends having a chat. There ain't a lot of stuff going on. But yet what happened right there in a matter of moments is you thought your way into darkness.
Yeah.
And then out of it into lightness. And it took you a matter of moments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You basically traveled the entire human emotional highway from end to end, dark to light, right? The whole spectrum in a moment's time. And all you did was change the content of your thinking.
Yeah.
What if we were really purposeful with that ability? If we would exercise that ability all day, meaning we are choosing our emotional response to all of reality. We're choosing it. We're never letting the outer world govern the inner world. In fact, we're reversing that and having the inner world influence the outer world.
I like that. And I'm going to ask you a question. Yeah.
And just to touch that up a skosh. Because the mantra for that is the outer world is a reflection of the inner world. So what I've got going on in my life is the reflection of what I've got going on in my mind, right? So if I have chaos in my life, it's because I've got some chaos in my mind. If I have abundance and order and excellence in my life, and I've got that going on, most of us have both. The earlier mantra that I mentioned, which is create the state, don't wait.
Yeah.
The state that I create is measurable. It creates vibrations, right? So this isn't like woo-woo talk. This is hard science, all right? There's a machine called a magnetoencephalograph that measures the vibration of your thinking, the vibrational quality of your thinking. The high vibe states obviously create high vibes. And that is how we're vibing, right, with the world, how we're influencing the world around us, people and events. And I am infinitely convinced, as I think most scientists that study this stuff are, is that when we choose to think our way into the higher vibrational frequency states, this is when we are badasses. And life participates with us to co-create magic. And people call it luck.
Yeah.
They call it luck. I just ordered a book yesterday. I can't wait to get it. It's called Conscious Luck, I think, by Gay Hendricks.
Wow. And
our friend, Kameen Samuel, is co-authoring a workbook right now as we speak on that. And I can't wait to get it. It's called Conscious Luck, meaning like he's using the word luck and kind of like air quotes there. And it's like, you know, why do some people seem to get all the breaks? Well, I think it has a lot to do with. I think it has a lot to do with the way that they vibe, you know, and vibing up.
Yeah, and I'm gonna steal that. Vibe up. You know, I'm just, you know, I love it. I mean, I say high vibe, high magic, right? That's pretty much what you said, right?
That's that.
That's when we met.
I'm
last
stealing
year.
that.
we met last year in an event where it was a lot of high vibe, right? And I don't know you, but I had a lot of synchronicities, and so, you know,
I am so at A-Fest. You're talking about A-Fest, and I met you at my second one, and the first one that I went to was in Sardinia, and then afterwards Sardinia, Italy. and like and I come out of that event like woo, feeling like, you know, the way I imagine a cell phone would feel if it had feelings after a full good charge. You know, you just walk around going 100, I'm a hundo. You know, just bringing that incredible vibe, which you could describe so many ways. It's like loving, it's enthusiastic, it's like participatory, collaborative, you know, creative, optimistic, opportunistic, you know. And so what happened was when I, after that event ended, I went off into under the instruction of my mother, my birth mother. She said, after that event's over, you're going to go island hopping in Greece with no itinerary. And I'm like,
that's a good mom.
Hang with you, mama. This is why I hang with you. This is a picture. It's a mouse pad. This is a picture of my mom. I'm referring to Linda Kirsch.
Oh,
that's the
wow.
day that we were reunited. So anyway, she told me she's an intrepid world traveler. She's an incredible world traveler. She's lived all over the damn world. So I called her and said, after I go to A-Fest in Italy, what should I do? And she didn't even think. She's like, I'll tell you exactly what you're doing. You're going island hopping in Greece with no plan, alone. I'm like, roger that. So the other thing I brought was a little carry-on bag. And like I left all my costume and stuff, you know, and I like the cool. I left so much stuff behind. Just had a little bag and an incredible vibe. And here's a list of 48 isolated, unique stories that of magic stories that I co-created because of the vibe that I brought. And that's going to be, I'm going to create something out of that. I don't know if it's a book,
yeah,
a series of, I don't know, it'll be something cool. But here's the mantra that I created as a consequence of that experience. Because I came back, I'm like, what? Okay, let's always be in that vibe, CD, because wow. You know, so my mantra for that is magic is all there is. That's the constant in this equation that we call life. The variable is my ability to vibe high enough in order to co-create with it.
I like that.
Saying?
Definitely. And thank you for the exercise. I really, really like it, because that was pretty much almost the same exercise you had on YouTube about confidence, right? It's not something I'm going to be confident when. You can choose to create that state right now. And one question I have for me is, for others, is when you, because I've done Vipassana. I don't know if have you ever done that? You've done that.
I don't know if I've ever done Vipassana.
Okay, so 10-day meditation, silent.
No,
I've had that chance to do.
Yeah, now I'm clear. No.
I'm like, you probably didn't.
Sure I haven't.
Like, I'm not sure if I've done that.
Yeah, no, yeah, you would know.
It's not a drink.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding.
Probably have had it.
In Mexico, Vipassana.
Yeah.
But there's a concept about observing, right? Observing your thoughts. And one thing that I thought, because I really like when you choose, and everything's a choice in my mind, right? You choose, and that was an example, you choose the state and you don't wait. And there's a lot of people that are saying also you have to, one, acknowledge it. So that's what you said, like people that are masterful at their thinking, they're able to acknowledge. And what would you say about embracing, like even before going to choose, to embrace that thought, or just, you know, it sucks, I feel the suck, and then I choose. Is that the process that you would describe before you choose, or you just skip that and you go right away into?
Well, now again, I'm going to go with the both end response on this one too. Because there's times like when I'm in the middle of a performance, I don't have time for that shit. I need to get my state right fast.
You go.
I'm on a stage, give a keynote. Everybody, I'm starting to feel a little anxiety. I'm going to just check in with just fucking shut up, sit there for a minute. I got a thing to do, all right? No, it's like, I gotta switch it, man. I want to be able to switch it like bam. And I've done that many times because, you know, you get on stage and I go off on these damn tangents. I totally forget where in the hell I was going. And then you have that thought, like, dude, there's like 1,000 people staring at you and you are about to lose your train of thought. And of course, that thought is taking you further away. Yeah, so it's like, you know, and that becomes a real slippery slope. And you just start, you stay with that one more second. So you got to bring it back fast. And that's a skill, man. That takes practice, is to be able to actually like think you're like, I got this, bro. This is fun, as opposed to, oh shit, you know, from practicing. So when you're performing, then I want to have access to my ability to alter my states immediately. Okay, when, however, I'm training, whether it's through meditation or just walking through life, there's no performance going on, I'm driving in my car and there's some traffic and I start to get shitty, that's training. So that's when I want to slow it down, like you said, and really develop the deeper skill of being able to specifically identify, like let's just go with traffic. Can we use a real example? Because it's a thing that's like an easy example, because everybody's learned to think that that sucks, and it doesn't. It's just cars.
Yeah.
Close by, going slow, going places. That's what traffic is. It's not a pain in the ass. It's not a shitty situation, but that's the interpretation. It's a popular way of interpreting a set of circumstances that just are. So you get in traffic and you go, oh man. Now here's an opportunity for a mental toughness repetition, like a push-up rep, like a you know, you're getting reps in. So I want to go, what is the mood that I'm thinking my way into? Unbelievably perfectly phrased question of self-inquiry. What's the mood? I mean, that's like ownership. That's a really, really sophisticated way of asking yourself. It's like, what's traffic making me feel like? No, that's the victim language. It's not traffic ain't making you feel shit. Traffic's a bunch of cars, right? So the question is, what state am I thinking my way into right now? You know what? It's just total frustration. Like I'm irritated AF. All right, good. So now that's masterful. Because now, and even just the acknowledgement of it has you start to transcend it, because you're no longer stuck in it like a prison cell, and you've identified it and you've already taken ownership of it. It's like, what's the thought, what's the emotion that I'm thinking my way into? And by the way, it's just like, if it's frustration, it's because you think this is annoying. And it wasn't annoying until you thought of it. Like, what if you were a passenger in that car in traffic and you were asleep? So there you are in traffic. Are you suddenly frustrated? No, because you don't even know that there's traffic. So traffic itself could never be anything except what it is, which is just cars close to each other going slow. So I think my way into that. So I acknowledge the state. And then the next step is, well, how can I upgrade this? And it doesn't matter. Like, you're not trying to fall in love with traffic. You just you're practicing stop and whining about it and being a victim to it. So you can do anything. You replace it with the thinking, thank God how blessed am I that I've created a life for myself that has me afford a damn car in the first place. Or that I can afford to pay for Uber. It's not my car. Whatever. Just like, where am I going? I'm thankful, so create gratitude. Just switch it up. So you're stronger after that practice. Right? So
I like that you say practice, because in both cases, you use the word practice. You said, and I love also the fact that you said there's sometimes you don't have it wouldn't serve you, I guess. It wouldn't serve you to think into, oh, I'm feeling shitty if you're in front of 1,000 people. That's the time to just show up, peak performance, and you use the word practice. So, and you said the same for the other situation. So for people that are starting, it's okay to be shitty, if there's such a thing as saying shitty. It's actually just, it's a neutral event that we call it shitty or not. And then you practice and you get better. And I'm assuming also that with time, your body can give you the answers, right? Like you just feel it. That's why we had that exercise. What did you feel? And then, oh, that sounds like I'm going into this channel or this path right now. Boom, I can choose which type of emotions I want, right?
I am in the practice of catching myself. I watch my mouth. Like, I watch the words that come out of them, and I'm always curious, do I agree with that? Like, is that bullshit? Do I agree with it? Is it true? Do I like it? So I'm observing, because my language is a dead giveaway to my thinking. So it's like the hardest evidence ever of your thinking. So when I hear myself say something like, oh, this sucks, I always follow it up with, unless it doesn't. And that interrupts the authenticity of that low-grade interpretation. Right? Like, oh my God, she frustrates me. Unless she doesn't. because what I mean by that is I'm like, oh yeah, well, you know what? That's not actually true. That's never a true statement. This never, whatever it is, doesn't ever stop. It just is until I put an interpretation on it, right? And no one could ever piss me off. That's just never true. It's stupid. How could that ever be true? People can just do things, and it's up to me. Like, you could slap me open-handed, square across the face, wham, and that doesn't piss me off. It's what pisses me off is my interpretation of it, which would be like, what's wrong with him? It's bullshit. Like, it hurts like hell. What the hell's the matter with you? That's my interpretation of it. With practice, I could actually you could slap me across the face and I go, that is crazy, man. What are you doing even? I could just be like, Francis, what the hell's going on over there?
And you know what? I think you,
Eleanor
what you said also, and I'm not kidding. And I think it's synchronistic. We're already vibing up. I pulled of all the email. I said, hey, let's just give an example for the viewers of what you do on a daily basis is the daily dose. And I thought, one of them that was this week, and that's exactly what you said is and I'm going to read it and I highly, highly encourage you. I can't believe it's free. You do it on a daily basis. It's called a daily dose in 30 seconds or less. Amazing. So to give an example, and that's going exactly what you said, not a coincidence. You said, paying very close attention to your language is one of the easiest and most effective ways to strengthen the level of mental toughness. Listen to what you're saying and be in the inquiry. Do I agree with what I just said? It's not uncommon for me to articulate something and upon hearing it, allow myself following up with delete that. Or even, you know what?
I did that today.
Yeah.
I did that in our conversation, or I did that once.
Exactly. So I was laughing in my mind. I'm thinking, wow, this is the quote I want to read. And you're like, I'm going to say it. And I disagree with that. Erase that.
Yeah.
High five. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah, it's a good practice. It's a great practice. Pay attention. That's the self-inquiry. It's a form. It's one form of self-inquiry, of inner awareness. Mental toughness is entirely predicated upon your level of inner awareness. So,
and then a choice that follows.
Say again?
And then a choice that follows. So first step is, being aware.
You can't make a choice because, like, if you can't make a choice if you're not aware that, like, you're even frustrated. You're just in the frustration, like you're in the traffic, like, God. And you're in this belief. You're not thinking it out loud, but you're literally like in the belief, like a prison cell, that my mood won't change until this traffic lightens up. Like, I won't lighten up until the traffic does. You're not saying that out loud, but that's the state you're in. Again, being a victim of circumstance, waiting for the outer world to change before you manipulate the inner world. And coming back to this isn't just about happy thoughts, man. This is about being badass and creating miracles, right? So there's a video that I recorded on this. There's a particular story of a day. I'm not going to tell the story, but I will tell you where you can watch this story recording. Where I was going to give a talk in San Francisco for a company called Salesforce. And I've been working with them for a better part of a decade. The first and only time they've ever hired me, you know where I'm going with this one? They were.
I'm laughing because I love this video. I was with you with the level of frustrations you had during the day, and I'm like, that frustrates me. Oh my God. Oh, yeah. And So it's all about a story. Like, so they were flying me out the same day I was giving the talk. It's the first and only time they've ever done that. And it would make sense to not do that because there's a lot of things that can, quote, go wrong. Now, I'm saying quotes because I don't believe that that's even a real thing, but that's what we buy into is that stuff goes wrong. Stuff just goes. Anyway, all the stuff that could go wrong went wrong. And what happened, the tiny little version that I can tell without being a spoiler, is that after like a series of wrongnesses, like a long series of wrongs, some people started to snap. And I was one of them. The irony of that is I'm a mental coach on my way to go give a talk on high-grade interpretations of reality, and I'm spiraling down. Yeah. Great. They saw me, they're like, you know what? I'm saying that we're good. So, but this guy next to me he just lost his shit, man. He was going berserk. Like, where people go,
damn, bro. But I'm so thankful for that because it had me go, who you want to be now, babe? Who are you going to be right now? And I said, Garage, I am going to the other end of the spectrum as this gentleman right here. And I vibed up like a madman. Like I exaggerated it. And in retrospect, I realized there was no exaggeration at all. It's not even possible to do that. I just vibed up to the highest I possibly could. And then what happened was magic for the remainder of the day. And I tell a story in a 27 minutes, it's like 27 and 0 seconds. It's weird, long video. So which you can find on my YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and put in Chris Dorris and just put enthusiasm. The full name is
Enthusiasm.
How to Capitalize on Enthusiasm. But if you just put go to YouTube, just Chris Dorris Enthusiasm, it'll pop up.
Yeah.
Have a look at it. It's a fun story, but it's a poignant story about everything we've been talking about so far today, man, which is what we co-create, right, for ourselves with the world, how we participate with reality, and what outcomes we co-create with the vibe that we choose to operate from, which originates with our thinking.
Yeah, and the ripple that you created after, right? Like it could have been a way different tangent, and you went, and that created. I remember the story. It was an amazing. I remember laughing in the kitchen because I was listening to it in the morning, and I was with you. I thought, oh, I would be so frustrated, and then and I love the moment where you just switch it up, like you said. You decided to vibe up. Now, who do I want to be? And yeah, there's so many great stories. There's one. I think it would, because I'm thinking that this one can help a lot of people at the moment with, COVID, and people are losing their jobs, and, seems like there's a lot of circumstances to deal with. And I remember you interviewed one of my coach and one of my good friend, Gary. And as you interviewed him, you mentioned the story about one of the limitations you had for a long time, and it was about money. And I don't know if you remember that, but it was, basically you had a good challenge from your coach. And I'd like you, if you can retell the story, because it did change my life in a way, man.
Oh,
it was powerful. I heard that, and it was an indirect thing that happened because you were just interviewing Gary, and I felt, man, I love this story. So, maybe you can put us in context, because I believe that this is an example of how we can become resilient. And I'd love to hear your definition of that, and at the same time. And people are dealing with a lot of stuff right now, right? So,
yeah, my definition of resilience would at this moment is choosing. There's everything we've been talking about, dude. It's choosing the belief that I always have the resourcefulness, the mastery to create excellence for myself, despite the learning I've picked up along the way to the contrary. So the story is, this is the second time I've told this story today. It's funny because there's a client prospect that said to me, he just recently became a client prospect. He's been a follower of like the Daily Dose and stuff. And then he contacted me and said, what's it like to work with you? And I told him, it's all on my website and stuff. The one-on-one coaching programs are outlined. And relatively speaking, I think that they're probably on the higher end of average for fees. I think. I couldn't prove that, but anyway, he comes back with, man, I'd love to work with you, dude. I so would love to work with you, but I can't afford it. And whenever I hear that, I want to respond to that in service. Like, even if we never talk again. So I invited him into a phone call this morning. Specifically, it was only a 30-minute call on this, which is the sentence, I can't afford it, is never true. Is never true. Okay, it just means I'd say 99% of the time what it means is I don't believe that I possess the resourcefulness to create the resource for this thing I want. It's like I don't have what it could be true that I don't have the money in the bank available to give you this moment. That could be a true statement. But like, I can't go get it is never a true statement. And here's how I know it. Here's how I can never unknow it. So I'm working with Steve Hardison.
Ultimate coach, yeah.
Who is this guy right here. And this is our boy, Steve Chandler. They've both been my coach. And when I'm working with this guy, he calls me one night on a Wednesday, which is really weird. It's Wednesday night at 9 p.m. And I'm on the phone with my girlfriend at the time having our typical evening marathon phone call. She lives in Manhattan. I live in Arizona. So the call drops with my girlfriend, which is really weird because I have perfect reception in my home and she has perfect reception in her apartment in the city. So it was odd. So I'm like, I look at my phone, I'm like, well, I'm good. I got all the bars, so it must be her deal. So I'll just wait, she'll call me back. And the phone rings, but it's not her. It's Steve Hardison. I'm like, oh, way weird. It's 9 o'clock on a Wednesday, what's up with that? So I answer and I call him Admiral. He calls me Boatness. We're not gonna get into why. It's just fun nicknames. It's just fun names for each other. So he's all amped up. He's like, Boatness. I'm like, whoa, wow. And I'm like, because I'm like 3 glasses of wine deep. And like he's up here and I'm like down. I'm like, bro, just like 4 notches. I need you to bring it down. So anyway, he's like, Bonus, are you willing to participate in the creation of a miracle? So when he asked me, are you willing to participate in the co-creation of a miracle? I'm like, come on, man. Who are you talking to? Like, yes. Love that guy. He goes, there's a woman putting on an event where he was going to be speaking in a week and a half. And she's really having a hard time pulling it together. It's going to be up in Salt Lake City. And I want you to call her first thing in the morning. Do not tell her I told you to call. You do this, and you act like this is your idea, and that's important. I'll explain why later. And you ask her what can you do to help, and whatever she asks for, you say yes. If you do this, and I'm just going, holy shit. If you do this, I promise you will experience miracles in your life, both personally and professionally. Are you willing to do that, Chris or Boatness? And I'm like, I think half the reason I said yes to that is because I was scared shitless of him right there. Yeah. But the other half is because this is actually cool. Like, this is cool. Like, this is living. I'm like, oh, baby, get you some of that. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, because I love you. Pray to God she asks for something huge. Click. Oops. Like, what have I done? Oh, shoot. So I'm like simultaneously amped and nervous as hell. And and I'm like, what is going to happen here? And she says, oh my God, you're such a savior. I'm like, no. I'm just afraid to say no. And she's like, okay, oh, that's so great. Can you please attend the event? And I was like thinking, oh man, because that's on a weekend. I had already seen him, Steve, give the talk here in Tempe, Arizona, at the boathouse where Gary and I hang out when he comes, and or the fish house. And I'm like, this is on a football weekend. I'm going to miss my beloved Eagles game playing against Dallas, our #1 rival. I'm like, yes, of course I can. And she's like, oh, it's so great. It'd be great to have you there. And then she's like, okay, so. And then you can tell she's starting to feel a little bit like this is taking some effort to ask this next ask. And she goes, could you pay for the venue? And I'm like, now, here's the part I was about to say earlier is I was about out of money. I just spent all my money on him. He ain't cheap, which FYI, just saying.
Yeah. We
So
both
I'm like,
know it could be in the 6 figures easy.
I am tapped out. Okay, which I love though, because it was another all-in move, and I knew that it was great. It was like the best investment. Like I hand over this check, and it was like, that's amazing. That's going to be the best thing ever. But I was like cash poor, and so she's like, "Can you pay for the venue?" And I go, "Yes." And then she's like, "Well, do you want to know how much it is?" Yes.
Pray for God, it's big.
Yeah. And let's put it this way: I didn't have it, and I don't even remember how much it was. I know it would qualify to anyone in the world as a lot of money, and maybe not anyone in the world, but whatever. So I didn't have it. I didn't have anywhere close to it. And she's like, "Oh, thank God! Can you wire that to me this evening?" Yes.
And it's in the morning, same day.
Yeah. She wants it that day. So I'm like, please hang up, nothing else. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. And she just gave me the bank routing information and we hung up. So now this is the important part of the story. It's the thinking that I went into that changed my life right then, permanently, that I could never go back to or from, which is, this isn't a maybe. I said yes to the man who is integrity, Steve Hardison. I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't like a try thing. This is an absolute. It's happening. Now, if you ask me as soon as I hung up, how you gonna do it? I'm like, fuck, I got to shut up. I got to figure that out. But it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to happen, or better, it's already happening. Fact. Because of my all-inness, which wasn't my language then. I didn't even know that that's what I was experiencing until retrospect. I just went into this. I'm sitting in the exact same place where I was when I hung up the phone. This is where I was when I talked to her. And I'm going, okay, let's get it done. So all it was, so the possibility of not getting it done was non-existent in my field of consciousness.
I love that. 100% certainty. You know, one of my component, right, about resilience and certainty. So for you, it was 100%.
Certainty. Like certainty that it will get done.
Yeah.
Absolute question mark on how, but exclamation point on that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the thinking. Like, if you're going to take anything from the story, it's that. Right? Is that we have the ability to decide with absolute clarity and certainty in advance that we're going to create something even long before we have any clue how. That's some powerful shit right there.
Absolutely.
And he knew he was setting me up for that. He knew, he's so brilliant. It was a total mastermind move on his part because he knew I'd figured it out. Right? So I did. It just took me an hour to sit around and just come up with an idea, which I think was half baked. I mean, I could have, if I had just take 15 more minutes, I would have come up with many other ideas, which I've had since then. But I was so excited about my first solution idea. I'm like, woo! And I went with it. And it ended up me spending my money. I thought of millions of ways I could have done it where other people would have spent their money. And it would have been a tax deduction and all this good stuff. But anyway, there's a million solutions. That the first one became obviously apparent to me after only about an hour of reflection. But the level of reflection came from the certainty.
Mm-hmm.
That level of certainty activates creative genius that is unparalleled. It gives us access to thinking that is not accessible when we're wondering, or worse, doubting. Even hoping doesn't come close to the kind of creative genius that I activate when I'm in the certainty mode, which I call all in. So I went and I got the money that day after. I just called some clients and some business clients and said, hey, you know, I know we're only halfway through a program, but I got a thing going on. And if you're willing to re-up now and send a check today, because that's the thing that I told my story, like, oh wow, what a neat story. Then, you know, I'll throw in like an extra, you know, team training session or something, you know. And they're like, yeah. So it was really easy, Francis. The solution was actually a little disappointingly easy. Like, I kind of wish he had asked for like 15 Harley Davidsons. So I would have had to figure that out. But it doesn't matter, because whatever I did, you know, I figured it out. And I wired it to her that day. And then I got to thinking that since that was actually not that challenging, like anybody could have done that, you know, what else could I contribute to this then, since I'm going, that only Chris Dorris could contribute? Because anyone could do what that was. Anyone could do that, is go create, you know, X number of dollars like that with all in thinking and some creative action, instant action. So at the time I was producing my first audio program, which is a 5-disc set called Creating Your Dream Course. And it was at the production company, and I called them up and said, hey, I have an unrealistic request. Can I get 600 copies of disc 1 like tomorrow? and they're like, that is an unusual request. And what else is unusual is your timing. Yes.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's all the synchronicity, dude. And she's like, normally I would be like, you're nuts. But today I'm like, yeah. In fact, we just had such a big order be paused that we're like wondering what should we do this afternoon. So we can do that and actually have it couriered to your house this afternoon. I'm like, So I brought that and I put that in a gift bag. So everybody that came in attendance to this thing got that. And I got clients and business from it and stories out the wazoo. The fact that I'm even telling this story twice, 10 years later, twice in one day, 10 years later, is one of the gifts that I got from it that I use in my coaching and all my work. You know, and the simple summarization of it is that I can't afford it. It's total horseshit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, if this is the thing that I want, I don't care how much money I have at the time. If I want it, then all I got to do is decide that'll be so, and then go take immediate, bold, masterful action from the decision-making state, which is what I call all in. So that about a month later after that event, it was actually on Christmas Eve, right after that event, I woke up and I'm like, this is unbelievable, because I hadn't stopped thinking about how powerful this was, you know, and I recorded in one take an hour-long audio program called All In on the nature of how powerful we are when we're in that certainty state. So there's so many things going on in that story. One of them was that the call dropped back in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, and I told Steve Hardison that way later. I was like, you know what, man? There's no way for you to have known this, but, and I told him the part, like I was on the phone, I would not have hung up to take your call, like, because I was talking to my girl, and I would have just said, I'm sure he'll leave a message. And I said, would you have left a message? I don't know. But I said, but you know, the only reason that we had that conversation is because the call dropped, like it opened up. And he wasn't like, wow, at all. He's like, yeah. He's like, dude, I see that every day. It's God in action.
I love this story so much, because one of the things that I love about the story is, and you said it, it's bold action. And to me, we're only one request away of making a bold request. Like we're just it's so at the end of the day, usually it's don't want to feel embarrassed. And I know that if your loved one was in jeopardy to have a surgery tomorrow and there would be an amount of money to be paid on the way, you would say, I don't care. I'm gonna be vulnerable. I'm gonna ask people. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna make a phone call. That's what I need.
And in addition to that, in retrospect, this is a cool distinction. What I felt was a bold ask then, in that moment, to go ask my client to pay me a large sum of money in advance, there was no boldness whatsoever. Like when I look at it now, it's not bold. That's bullshit. That's not bold. But it felt bold. It felt really bold in the moment. But now, in retrospect, it's clear to me that that's just a smart move. That's just an intelligent move involving service to everyone. That's not bold, it's just smart, right? Mm-hmm. So being questioned, when you think you're entertaining about being about to do something bold, question maybe it's not so bold, maybe it's just kind of normal, smart.
I love that. I'm so glad that we had this experience together and talk about this story. This is one of my favorites because it made me really realize, and even until lately for different reasons and different things in my life, that we are creators. We are really just a creator. And just to go back to what we said before, this thought, I can decide and choose to create it. I choose the thought and then it creates. And now I get what it is to say that you attract who you are, but not what you want. And I've seen it from one of my best friends that you know. And there was a day where we were together and, you know, we're pitching the business to somebody and his level of voice just went up a notch. And I'm thinking, whoa, this is different. And then another call we made, same thing appeared again. And then, you know, went to see some friends, same thing. And I had to tell him, I said, look, I don't know what you ate today, but this is good. I like that. And that distinction to me from a distance, I was able to see, I know that if you're showing and you are confident, that's how you portray yourself. There's definitely different actions that's going to happen. And there's going to be different things to have after, for sure. Like we haven't seen the outcome, but if you live like that on a daily basis, and if you are that person, it's a no-brainer. Things are going to be very different in the end. And I made a mistake myself to always think that, you know, when I'm going to have that, I'll be able to do this and be that. And it's all the other way around, right? Like it's just the being and we create. This is an amazing news. This is,
you know, when I came back from that first A Fest, the year before I met you, I made a pledge, which I must be honest, I haven't kept completely because I forget it. So I haven't done it perfectly yet. Still haven't mastered it. So thank you for the reminder. And the pledge was this, that all interactions moving forward, I'm taking time to consciously vibe up beforehand and to silently, as a consequence, invite everyone around me to join me and co-create the magic that awaits us at every moment.
I think it summarizes, because this is I think that's the point. It's the point to me, like the idea of resilience started with an idea, and now there's 6 people in it, and and it all started with just one little idea. And I'm pretty sure that the way I was very different from before, and that's how you enroll. That's how you bring people into your dreams. So there's really no excuse. And I have compassion for people as well too. And I was in that situation where I felt that I had no power or no possibilities because the external circumstances were way bigger than me. And so what would be maybe your advice on how to transcend that, whether it is to understand a little bit more the cost or the way to just come to that conclusion of being a creator?
I referenced this earlier. Right, so this is a product of the work that I did with Steve Hardison. Now, this language may not make sense to anyone. I'm just showing you this is an object that contains, okay, this is a laminated paper page that contains the mantras that I've come up for. This is my I ams. You know this. You know this program. Mm-hmm. Gary's is amazing, by the way. I love this. I've stolen one of his. One of his, I have some freshies I'm adding to it, is I am that I have no complaints. Steve Hardison's, I believe he sent me his. His is 4 minutes long, his recording of it. I have recordings too. So come up with mantras, your own personal mantras of who you are when you are at your absolute best. Who are you when you are the highest expression of you? And stop waiting for that to, wishing for it to someday be true. Have it be true now. Speak your way into it every day. So one of my favorite things about the work that we do is we help people remove the unnecessary time that we've been conditioned to put between us and our desires. And part of our desires is who we want to be. And part of our desires is what do we want to have. Part of our desires is what do we want to be doing with our lives. Is removing the unnecessary time. And a huge part of that involves speaking. How do we speak to ourselves? Or that's not what I meant to say. Delete. There's the work.
We see it in action. I love that. Mental toughness in action.
It's stopping believing that it's going to require time for me to be that person. Let's have it be true now. Like, can you be the person right now? Like, could you be doubtless for a second? Like something that you want to create for yourself. Can you simply sit there and choose to be in the knowing absolute certainty state? You just do that now. And if you can't, practice, because you're wrong. If your answer is, I can't, well, you're wrong. You can. You just got to keep trying, and use language to speak your way into it to make it easier. Present tense language. I am a massively successful entrepreneur. I am entrepreneurship in motion. Whatever it is that you want to be true, have it be true now.
To me, I mean, to all the viewers, I'm a big fan, and I know we'll do it even more because we just scratched the surface on, first of all, the story we didn't even have from you. So that's going to be part 2.
Part 2. Let's make a mental note for part 2 to share another story of creation. Okay.
Yeah.
Which involved my internship in my master's program. Somebody coached me. Oh my God. Standing in a parking lot, asked me 2 questions, changed my life. I'm not telling you anything else.
Ooh, that's a good tease. Oh man, I love that. Wow. And if you had something to say to, and first of all, so you have 2 books that people can read right now. It's The Daily Dose, which, encompasses all the stories or all the emails that you're sending. 300.
Yeah, The Daily Dose comes out every morning. It's called The Daily Dose, Mental Toughness Tips in 30 seconds or less. And you sign up for that. Then it shows up at 6 a.m. wherever you are in the world, in your mailbox. And it's just a little nugget. This is here's a book on the first year of them. So just little condensed nuggets of gold, mental toughness gold. So
Huge fan. And you're also creating your dream is another book you read.
That's
You
the
read,
first
you
book.
wrote.
I did read it. I read it. I think it's all right.
Confidently stepping into your own brilliance. I love that.
I like
Yeah.
that subtitle better than the actual title itself. But yeah, you can get that stuff. You just go to my website. You can get all those lists and get, we do. You've been a guest of mine on my Tough Talks podcast, and so if people want to follow that, just go to ChristopherDorris.com/lists, LISTS, and you can get on both. Name,
Yes.
one click, bam.
I love it. It's 30 seconds or less, and every time it's just a good reminder. This is the thing. Like there's a lot of things that we remember, and one of the quotes maybe that is one of my favorites. He said, "Every circumstances can be leveraged for gain if viewed masterfully." Right?
If viewed masterfully, every set of circumstances can be leveraged for a gain, or magic can be created from it, but only if viewed masterfully. The high vibe.
High vibe. You know what, Chris, hey man, thank you so much for all the nuggets, and we vibed up. I'm really happy about that. And please, people, follow Chris, and be coached by him if you can. Now, there's no excuse. We can all afford it.
Oh, that's handy, isn't it?
Right? And this is, we're already, like, now we can come up with that excuse.
Don't even, go to my website, look at the one-on-one coaching fees, and then pick your jaw up and go, no, don't you dare say I can't afford it.
Create miracle. That's what it's going to happen when you do it. So
we are miracles, dude. If you look at the math, I mean, we are miracles. So why weren't we? Of course, we're designed to create miracles. Yeah.
So thanks for creating miracle with us, and you're amazing, my friend, and can't wait to part 2, where we're going to learn a little bit more about Chris Dorris, or CD. Thank you, Chris.